Welcome to the DL. This is the podcast show where we talk about everything going on in the heavy truck and equipment industry. So one of the things that we're really passionate about here at Diesel Laptops is training technicians. We have plenty of people that buy these expensive kits, they open it up, and once they figure out how to use the software, we quickly realize they really are struggling how to properly diagnose things. Vehicles got complicated, all kinds of new technologies enter in our space, and we have a company here that is going to talk today to the audience about what they're doing. And they have a much bigger scale than I think a lot of our audience does, but they really are understanding the importance of it. So with that, I'm going to invite and like to introduce Cory, who's the GM and Vice President of Service of FleetPride. So Cory, welcome to the DL Podcast, man.
It's great to be here, Tyler.
So let's just set the stage a little bit for everyone on FleetPride, because I was a parts counter guy 10, 15 years ago. FleetPride had parts stores and distribution, and now we're talking about diesel technicians and training. So if you could walk us through a little bit, that would appreciate it.
You bet. I appreciate the time to be here, by the way. We're really excited to be on this podcast with you, Tyler. But talking about FleetPride, you know, the traditional FleetPride has been a business of parts. You go back in the legacy of FleetPride, it's a roll-up of parts parts organizations, and quickly over the last few years we've become a service organization. But some of the really neat things going on from FleetPride's perspective, growth drivers. You've got what we've been doing in acquisitions over the last couple of years, and the rapid expansion we're seeing with that. The distribution centers. We've made some tremendous investments on the distribution side, not only expanding our talent, but expanding our opportunities and our options, where we used to be able to only fulfill directly from a branch, but now we've got with our new digital e-com tool, where we're fulfilling direct from the DC. We're working hard with our supplier partnerships to really engage with them, with our key partners for you think of all the different data and all the things that we need to be able to offer a best-in-class solution from an e-com perspective. So Stebo, IBM, Salesforce, all those types of key tools we're leveraging with our key suppliers, so that we can give that customer that best-in-class tool. And you think about, how does this relate to technicians? Well, today the technicians, when you come to a FleetPride shop, we work on anything and everything. We're not tied to one brand, one make. We're medium duty, we're heavy duty, we're all makes. But we've got to give our technicians and our counter people a better tool to be able to define that part quicker, and all of those related repair components that go with that. And so really excited about what we've been doing. Over 300 locations now from a FleetPride perspective, and we'll talk as we get into this. We'll talk more about the service side, but it's really been an exciting time to be part of FleetPride.
So I can say that I had the privilege of actually getting a tour of one of your distribution centers, your DCs. I mean, that triple mezzanine section that I saw in there, where you put the part in and it goes down and someone ends up packing it. Just super impressive stuff. So that was really one of the first, I don't know of any. I mean, I've seen that before at OEMs, because that's where I worked at. I was just thoroughly impressed and understood once I saw it, where you guys were going. Just monstrous facilities full of truck parts. So great things that are happening there. And then Cory, can you explain your role inside FleetPride and some of your experience a little bit for the audience as well?
So absolutely. I'm the general manager, vice president over service for FleetPride. Going back my career, my experience is my career. I began my career in the construction agricultural business, and then moved into trucking about a dozen years ago. And I've spent my last 3 years at FleetPride. Prior to my current role, where I'm running service, I was running the central part of the United States, from basically Minnesota to New Mexico, and all those retail locations in that area. But beginning of this year, we stood up a new business unit, the service business unit, where we've got the responsibility for now over 70 service locations. And so we began that at the beginning of this year, and that's what I've been doing.
So I worked at an OEM dealership, and I was a service manager of one branch, and we had 5 branches. And that was a tough thing to get your hands around, just getting 5 branches. And you guys are obviously growing fast. I feel like I see a press release about every week, it feels like, from you guys acquiring someone new. So how's it been going on? Like, this is a whole kind of a new thing, and service isn't easy at the end of the day.
It's really been an exciting time for us at FleetPride as we've moved into this growth lever. So our CEO that's been with us about 2 years, Mike Duffy, really helped us find this new gear and really move into this acquisition mode. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity on the service side of the business where there's a bunch of owners out there that don't have succession planning. So you mentioned yourself, you've been in a dealer with 1 location up to 5 locations. And so there's not a lot of succession in the aftermarket space from a service perspective. So it's really allowed us the opportunity to go in there and provide career advancement opportunities for these owners, employees. That they're at the end of they're at the end of their career and they don't have somewhere to move. We've created this really tremendous opportunity to allow their employees to continue to be employed and grow with us.
Yeah, I mean, from afar, we see the headlines and we see things going great. So it's been great to see. I think I look at our industry, and I guess let's talk about the technicians here for a little bit, right? So I look at it, and I think, in my perception, there's a huge diesel technician shortage. As of right now, there's over 80,000 job opens on Indeed alone, and our tech schools produce about 10,000. So we get this huge gap in there. And not only that, but as I stated at kind of the top of this, trucks got more complicated. We got robots driving trucks soon. We got EVs coming, after treatment systems, more and more computers, and all these things. So it appears to me one of the things that I've seen online is that FleetPride says, hey, we're going to go invest in our diesel technicians and provide training to them. So I am curious to hear from your viewpoint of, how important is that to an organization to provide continuing education to these diesel techs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, when we stood up the service business unit, it was one of the main key pillars of this new service business unit was making a tremendous investment in the technicians. We've got the FleetPride Tech University. It's a newer group for us that began the beginning of this year, but we recognized very quickly that in order to allow the technicians to have the opportunity to grow with us, we needed to do this. And so we're developing training from that entry-level technician all the way up to those that become certified master technicians. And like I mentioned a little bit ago, we work on all makes, all models. And so we can't just focus on one powertrain or one make. We've got to really be an expert in all of those. And so, this created a great opportunity for us to dig in and figure out.
Yeah, so a very similar thing here. I mean, I worked at a dealership, and again, I was a service manager, I was a parts manager, and I did other things there. But I was always like, man, we have access to all the resources. We have access to the OEM software, we get access to the factory, we get access to repair information, to factory training. And then you have this whole world of aftermarket who doesn't have any of that. And where we've struggled on the aftermarket side with the training, it's going to these shops and being like, hey, you need to go invest the time and money into sending your technicians to these classes. And we usually hear one of a couple things. The main objection we get is, well, we're so busy, I can't afford to have a guy gone for 3 days or 4 days to go do these trainings. So I guess what I'd like to hear from you is, you're obviously sending technicians, you have online training, you have classroom training. What's the response you're getting from the technicians once they go through that for the first time?
Man, I would tell you, Tyler, it's been a breath of fresh air. When they get to the classes, they're excited to be there to know that they're being invested in. And for them, it's like we said before, it's a career growth, career expansion opportunity for them, because as they develop and gain more skills, they can do more complex repairs, but it also impacts their way of living, because as they learn more, they are worth more as a technician. And so we have progressed, we progress their pay as we move through that. So, a little bit of a learning curve with our service managers, right? That, you think of all the legacy businesses that we've rolled up through acquisition, and like you're saying, hey man, I can't afford to have my technician out this week. And we've quickly helped them recognize they can't afford not to have them out to get trained and prepared, because as these trucks continue to advance technologically, we've got to be ready and prepared to be able to fix those. And so we recognized this was one of the most important things as we put together the service BU, was making sure that we really invested in the fleet, in the technician piece of this. And so, but it's funny that as we meet with acquisition candidates, I would say there's two or three key things that they bring up on almost every single one of them. Succession, of course, but a big one is the resources and availability of training for their people, and how excited they are that with their team joining FleetPride, we're now going to afford their employees the opportunity to develop and enhance their skills. And so that's something that has come up so much in the last 6 months as we've sat down with these potential candidates, and the acquisitions that we've made. Training is part of every one of those, where the owners are just really excited that you can do something I was not able to do as a single store outlet.
So inside FleetPride, did you put together like an entire like program or path for the employees where you integrate all these different pieces of it? Or is it just like, okay, this store, you got to send 3 people this week? Or how did you go about organizing that inside a bigger organization?
It's a great question, and like I said, we're new. So this organization began at the beginning of this year. Of course, we've been working towards this a lot longer than that and supporting it. But as we started to build this out, we recognized that there's kind of we've got 3 levels of technicians. We've got a Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, and so there's a whole skill set path of how do you go from a 1 to a 2 and a 2 to a 3. So it'd be like your apprentice all the way up to your master technician, right? And so there's training, there's a kind of a technician assessment that you begin with, and then as we move along their career path, that there's ways they can graduate into those next levels, which, like I said, of course, creates additional that they're worth more in the market, and so there's monetary value for them to do this. But we've got this entire career curriculum for them to move them up and potentially hopefully want to move all the way to a master technician.
Yeah. And, one of the things it's always about retention, right? Like we have this huge shortage. I think everyone's always worried like, oh, my technician's going to leave for 50 cents an hour or more somewhere else. I know like retention on the diesel laptop side, when I look at it, and every time we look every month, right, who left the company, and we always have 2 lists. We call them regrettable and non-regrettable, right? So the non-regrettables, we're like, oh, okay, that's okay, they're gone. Regrettable, we're like, man, I wish they wouldn't have left. And every time I look at that regrettable list, I either pin it on one of 2 things, like, hey, we had a conflict or a situation with their direct supervisor, or they're a great employee, the supervisor's great, we just didn't give them a clear career path to go make more money and better themselves. So are you seeing training help on the retention side when it comes to the diesel technicians?
Absolutely. The experiences we've seen to this point with the technicians that have been on site, they're home, they're sharing it with their peers, they're talking about with their service manager, hey, what's the next course for me? How can I develop this? I really need to become certified to repair Detroit engine. And so they're taking a big focus or interest in what that next step for their career is. And so yeah, from a retention perspective, we expect to see this continue to help us and assist in there's many things behind retention, like you said, but the investment in them and the training is a big lever to help with retention.
Yeah. Are you finding there's certain areas that your technicians are weaker or they want more training in, or what areas are you guys trying to focus everyone? Because there's a lot of componentry on today's commercial trucks.
Yeah, I mean, for us, like I said before, we work on all makes, all models, and so there's gaps in, there's some medium duty opportunities, but I would say that the greatest areas of focus, since they went to the tier 4 emissions, is anything emissions related. Is a huge area of opportunity. Plus the electronics on these trucks. You think of the number of computers it takes now to run one of these new vehicles, and so electrical diagnostic. Like I said, the emissions, and then just your engine work. The engines are much more advanced than they were. If you think back to, a dozen years ago when Caterpillar was kicking an engine out, a technician today gets excited when one of those shows up because it's pretty easy to work on a Cat engine. And 15 years ago, there's no way that you would have said that, right? But now with the new technology, that's where we're seeing most of the need for the gap that we've made the investment in is is engine emissions and then the electrical diagnostic piece of it.
So when I was a parts manager, mainly a parts manager, I guess, we had, our vendors that we bought parts from would say, hey, we'll do a training class thing for you guys, right? And they would come in and do those things. I mean, I know FleetPride, you guys sell hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of parts every year. Have you gotten some of those vendors to help with some of these things, or is it really just kind of doing some other things outside from the traditional vendor training or product training that they typically offer?
Yeah, I mean, we absolutely leverage the vendors. We work very closely with them. It's still a work in process as far as how to get their suite of courses into our technology. But we're heavily engaged with our key vendors and definitely standing up some trainings there to make sure that content is relevant and good for the development of the technician. But so we've got a whole vetting process of is this really gonna be a value add for the technician? If not, we try to steer clear of those.
Yeah. So inside FleetPride, I guess, is a bigger company. I mean, we're talking about technician training. Do you guys do other training for other staff members and departments like service writers and service managers and parts counter people, or is it mainly focused on the technician at this point?
That's a great question, Tyler. So when we began the service business unit, our initial focus was all about technician and the investment in the technician. But we've got an entire training department here at FleetPride that focuses on development of, like you said, the counter people, the managers. It's a big piece of our new culture, I would say, being driven by Mike Duffy, our new CEO. Well, not new, he's been here a couple of years, but it's a big piece being driven by Mike Duffy, is just to make sure that we're investing in the people to make sure they've got the skills necessary to level up.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it comes to diesel techs, they all want to do more, right? And they all want that opportunity and that path to make more money and do more things. So it's really refreshing to see you at FleetPride coming along saying, hey, we are going to go invest the money and do these things. And like I said earlier, that's one of our biggest things is people just saying, I can't do it. I can't free the guys up. And I'm just trying to tell the audience out there, like, you have to do it. If you don't do it, you're going to lose the guys to people like FleetPride that are willing to make those investments, because it's always with the long term, not just what I have in the shop today. And again, just really great to see everything that you guys have going on over there at FleetPride and the continued growth. And I got to ask, like, at the end of the day, you guys are buying up repair shops, but you guys will sell parts to some of your competitors. Any collisions happening there, or so far you guys been able to work through all that stuff?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think so at all. It's the repair space is such a large, fragmented space that there's enough room for all of us to navigate and honestly do very well. And so some of our very best customers on the parts side are shops down the street from our shops, and we figure out how to make it work. It's one of those things that oftentimes when we go into a market, there's enough work for everybody to go around, not enough technicians to go around, but that's something we all dream of being able to increase. But no, there haven't been big, major conflicts in that piece of the business.
Yeah, I keep saying, hey, we got a shortage problem here, and there's really, I don't think it's one solution. I get frustrated in our space because for 20 years, I've heard people saying, well, we got to go find more diesel techs. Let's go convince a bunch of high school kids to be diesel techs. And I'm like, okay, guys, you guys have been trying that for 20 years. It hasn't worked yet. It's only gotten worse. I keep saying it's really a combination of, we need to keep doing those things, but we also need to have technology and we need to do more to make them more efficient. And that's really what you're doing at FleetPride is you're saying, man, I got a limited pool of technicians, but if I can get them to increase capacity by 10%, 15%, 20%, it ends up being the equivalent of hiring someone. So I'm assuming efficiency and productivity are some of the measurement sticks that you guys are using with your diesel techs.
Absolutely. And it all comes back to everything we try to do is all about trying to support the customer. But for sure, you think of, the productivity, the efficiency. So about 2 years ago, before the service business unit was stood up, we made the shift to Carmack. And so all of our service centers are on Carmack, which allowed us the opportunity to really dig in and have a best-in-class operation tool so that we could understand the metrics and focus on that. And then you think about, us as a business, we're pretty dang good at parts. We got 300 locations, but we were asking our operations team in the field that was really good at parts to try to figure out this service thing at the same time, right? And so as we naturally progressed, we started with Carmack, and then when we went to the business unit, it allowed us to really start to begin to focus on those metrics and those, get the right leadership in the field that can focus on the key metrics to drive and grow service, to make us more efficient, more productive. And all of this, like I said before, is ultimately so that we could do a better job supporting the customer, so we can get the truck in and out of the shop quicker so they can get back on the road.
Yeah, and for the audience, I just want to break this down just a little bit, because this is something I've learned as my company grew from my garage to what we have today. Like, sure, doing what you do, and I think every small repair shop will understand this. Just doing what you do gets you to a level, and then they tend to get stuck there. Yep. Whether that level is $1 million a year or $10 million a year, depends on your business and all these things. But you tend to get stuck there. And what I hope the audience is picking up here is FleetPride. Yeah, they're taking care of their customers and doing things, but what they're spending their time on is strategy. They're spending their time on operational systems. What software do we need? What pieces of the puzzle do we need to be more efficient and do things for them? And diesel technician and training in general is one of those things. So it's an important piece of any business. And I guess kind of one of the last questions I'd like to ask you, I've seen different acquisitions you guys have done and pictures of tow trucks and mobile trucks and these things. Are those businesses FleetPride's also getting into, the mobile and towing and ancillary stuff? Or are you guys just saying, hey, we're an in-shop and we're going to stick to those?
Great question. So we have about 120 mobile trucks today, and that's probably, I would say, the fastest growing segment in the market. And so that'll be a space that will continue to grow, I would say, rapidly. The wrecker space is brand new for us. Through, I'd say, the last year and a half, 4 of our acquisitions have wreckers. So we've got over 40 wreckers today, predominantly in the Northeast, Pennsylvania, New York area. And so that's a business we're learning. It's an interesting business. It's there's things that we've learned from a technology perspective that the wrecker, our most recent acquisition of TNR out of New York, TNR Truck, the way that they manage their 724 call center to take care of their customers, it's amazing what we learned looking at their technology that we can bleed over to other parts of our business. And so did we ever plan to be in that piece of the business? I'd say probably not, but it's fun because now we get to learn something different than we didn't have and see, is this scalable as well to move into other markets? And so definitely we have wreckers, and we're definitely in the mobile space, and that's going to be an area that we really grow. And another piece of the business that's a growing piece for us is on-site repair, where we've got technicians that go on site to some major customers and take over their shops and run those for them. So there's all of those different segments have been great opportunities.
Yeah, it sounds like a very similar situation over here. Like, I never intended to get in the training business for diesel techs, but we realized we had to help our guys be more successful so they can afford the tools and do all those things. And once you go through it, like you just said, once you do one step, all of a sudden 3 doors of opportunity open up, and you get a bunch of these doors. And again, for the audience listening, that's a big piece of it, is just kind of taking a little bit of a risk, calculated risk. You end up finding you go a different direction than you really intended to start with. So, Cory, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on here. If people want to connect with you or learn more about FleetPride, I'm sure you guys are always looking for diesel technicians as well. Where's the best place for them to go do that?
So we're on all the major recruiting sites, but for technicians, FleetPride.com is where everything's posted. But pop by, check out one of our service centers, and would love to hear your feedback on how we're doing. And more importantly, Tyler, really appreciate the time today to spend with you.
Hey, man, I love talking about things in shop environment. It brings me back to my service manager days. So I think I could sit here for hours and pick your brain about things. So great to see all the success you're having over at FleetPride. And for the audience watching and listening, we're going to wrap this one up. But as we always say, it's not just diagnostics. It's diagnostics done right. And you got to invest in your employees. You got to invest in the training to do that. So thank you for watching, listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe. All those things we do on the social media platforms tremendously help us. We'll catch you on the next episode.